How's it going, everybody? I wanted to throw a big thank you out to everybody on the channel that has recently either come across the channel or has been a subscriber for really any length of time. I guess I had to give a bigger thank you to everybody that's been a subscriber from the get-go and has continued to uh, listen to me go on and on and on about technology. So that really means a lot to me. It's you guys pretty much drive the channel and what it does, things like that. So, um, as most of you know, I am producing the content for CCNA service provider for INE. And if you go to INE's website, there is they actually have it on their new and upcoming. If we actually go to let's see here. I'm just curious to see if they've updated the All Access Pass yet. They have not. So if you go to IND's website, and I'll bring this over, um, if you go to their content library and you go down to new and upcoming courses, and once that guy loads, and you click on upcoming courses, the CCNA SP Technology course is 640, 878, which is the one I'm working on right now, and the one that I just recently released to them, but they haven't actually published, is 640, 875, which is pretty much ICND1 for CCNA, for those of you that are interested in it. It covers a lot of the same material. So I'm about halfway through the second part, and my thing right now is making sure that I understand what I'm going through. So the the major thing that most people um, I shouldn't say it that way because it's not. Most of you guys pick up on it very, very quickly. Um, the part that most that I have to make sure that I understand before I release anything is what exactly it is you need to do, because there's a lot of commands that are available for a given feature. So I'm actually taking part two a little bit deeper than it really needs to be done, and only gives the fact that you probably are utilizing that in production. So not always, but the chance is there, so I'm going to cover it. So, but I'm not going way outside the scope. So one of the things that I'm also planning on doing is I have gone back and forth with via email with INE and the people that determine what goes into the all access the library and things like that. And basically, I was like, well, you know what? I'm planning on studying for CCNP service provider. Why don't I said, you guys, are you okay with me doing that? And the reason for that, the reason I offered it and brought it up with them is because nobody's got CCNP service provider. Well, that's not entirely true. There is some training out there for it, but in the grand scheme of things, there's really not a whole lot out there. So I figured if INE and I work together and we built CCNA and CCNP service provider, that would be a really good thing, because you never know, there might actually be a demand out there, and if people start to go out and start learning the technologies and stuff like that, then it might be beneficial. So my big thing is I want to go through the material in a very thorough manner. So I know Brian McGann does a really, really good job of delivering content, and he always has been that way. I mean, that's just his training style. He's very, very good at what he does, and he's not only a really good engineer, he's also a solid instructor. So I try to take some of what he does and bridge it into what I do, because it works. So a lot of what I'm doing, I'm practicing ahead of time for things that I haven't touched yet. So like, for instance, ISIS authentication. You know, ISIS is not a very well-known protocol for one. Most engineers don't know it. I'm getting stronger and stronger with it, but at the end of the day, there's still um, there's still a learning curve to it. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm using the CCNP prep, and I'm not rushing through it. I don't really need to. I'm using CCNP prep to get myself ready for, CCIE service provider, which I plan on taking. I hope to next year, this time, have it. Um, am I in any real big rush? No, but there's certain things that I want to know and I want to thoroughly learn. Like, for instance, I already know OSPF. I don't have to sit there and learn that one. I've already got, I've actually been recording in tandem both CCNA Part 2 for service provider, as well as the OSPF videos for CCNP service provider. Now I haven't officially gotten the okay and the go ahead from INE to do NP, but I'm 99% sure that once I wrap CCNA service provider, that they're going to go ahead and just do the contract signing of CCNP service provider, and then we're going to move forward with that. That's just my guess, but it's been talked about and it's in the plans to be done, and so that's pretty much where I'm coming from with that. So when I take a look at it from that perspective, the big thing that I'm covering now is, and what I'm using for my prep is I'm utilizing CCNP to pretty much just hit every bullet point. What do I mean by that? Well, let me just give you guys an example here. No, I don't want the latest from INE. So we're going to go ahead and click on Secure CRT. So what I'm doing here, and this is on iOS XR, and this is here on, we do a undebug. So this is actually running on Viral. This is a Viral router in the background here, and I've actually got to renew my subscription for Viral if I want to keep going at it. But let me go ahead and move this up because I know it's being blocked by my picture, which should be right down here in the lower right hand corner, where it eventually will be. So what I'm doing here, if we go to global config and we type in router ISIS1 and hit the enter key, do a question mark. Let's bring this all the way down, and we're going to bring this down just a touch further and bring this all the way up, or at least as high as it will go. And so my goal, and I know not every one of these is going to be touched on, but there's a lot underneath just the global process. So most of the stuff is going to be pretty straightforward, right? So you have the address family, you want to go mess with IPv6 for ISIS. You want to go in here and do some sort of what type of level 1, level 2 routes you potentially can advertise. So I mean, a lot of the stuff is pretty straightforward. Do you want to do default routing? Do you want to mess with the distance? Do you want to modify, the 115 that ISIS uses? Do we want to take a look at fast reroute for fast reconversions? There's a lot of options here that you have the option to work with. So I'm planning on going through and to mess with these just so I know what they do. And I've been asked a couple of times in the past, what makes a CCIE a CCIE? And honestly, it's doing this. So you go through and you know exactly what every one of these commands does. So let's say, for instance, we type in address family, question mark, we type in IPv4, and we say unicast. Okay, now we're must enable wide metrics first. So this would be one of those situations where I'd have to enable wide metrics. So we're going to say metric dash style, we'll say wide, and we'll hit the enter key, and then we're going to do that address family again. Now we're under AFI mode. Now I can go in here and I can modify things. I can say topology, and we can say topology. We'll say 0, I believe is going to be, and underneath that, now mind you, I haven't tested this out yet. So another example here would be if we wanted to go in and do domain path authentication. We type in authentication, and we're going to be playing along with how the authentication is going to work. Now I haven't gone through this all, so how would I go about doing that? Well, I would go through this and I would take let's say, for instance, let me grab the 15.5 configuration command reference, and I say the command reference because what I'll do is I'm going through here. The command reference is basically acts like a dictionary or an encyclopedia, if you will, for particular platform. So on iOS, we're going to grab the ISIS command reference. We're going to pull this up, and then we're going to bring this over. Now what this will do essentially is this will give me the access. Let me go ahead and zoom in on this for you. This is going to give us that flexibility of coming in here and saying, all right, I want to do this guy. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and zoom in one more. So what I'm going to scroll through here, And I've actually got this downloaded. It's just a matter of me going through the PDF and reading through it. And what I'm going to do is I go through here and I say, okay, what does the area password do? So I click on the area password. I scroll to the right here a little bit, and then I read through. It says, use configure ISIS area authentication password. Use the area password command in router configuration mode. To disable the command, type in no area password. So you have authenticate, SNP or sequence number PDUs, protocol data units, validate, and send only. So then I would come down here, and one of the things I really like about the command reference is it gives you usage guidelines. It says use the area password command on all routers in an area will prevent unauthorized routers from injecting false routing information into the link state database. And it gives you a configuration option here. Tells you how to configure it. And then you can continue on. So you go through here and you test it out. And then what I like to do is I like to do a debug. Debug authentication and see what's going back and forth. What do you look for? And that's how you sit there and you understand, okay, what is the password? And that's doing what is. So this is, I often will talk about the who, what, where, why, when, and how. Answer those questions on every feature, and you'll be an expert on the technology. So we'll say, okay, what is area password? Okay, that answers the what. What does it do? Okay, authenticates all the connections in the area. Okay, how do you use it? Right here. Where do you use it? At the global routing process. When do you use it? When you want to prevent routers from being injected, any rogue routers from injecting routes. So that's going to be, how it answers those questions. I may not have hit them all, but that's going to give you that flexibility. So it answers a marketing level. Okay, what is it? If you have to try to sell somebody on the idea, it answers the marketing aspect of it. If it tells you, how do you use it? Design wise, when do you use it? How do you use it? Where do you use it? And then you're answering the marketing, the design, and the business use case. So a lot of times that's what you need to answer for a potential customer is being able to answer those questions. And even if you're not talking to a customer, I'm talking to you guys. You're not my customers. Well, technically you are. I do produce content that you guys like to watch. So the way that I approach this is this way. I go through and I read. So if we scroll all the way to the top here, we have all these options here we can go through. And that's just A through I. So if we come all the way down here, we go IS type. So we go through here and we read each one of these and how we would modify it. Then we go L through V. And you come down here and you have VRF. So you have all these different options here. So the show commands are not something that I really play with right away. But what I'll do is I will read through all of these and say, okay, I want to look at max area addresses. What's the usage guideline for that? And the usage guideline allows you to maximize the size of an ISIS area by configuring additional manual addresses. You specify the number of manual addresses you want to add by entering the max area addresses command. You assign a net address to each to create each manual address by using the net address. And then it gives you an example of what they mean by that. So you go through here and you do this, and then you can add multiple net addresses and go through there. So it's going to give you that flexibility if you want to potentially grow the network. So that's one of those things where if you go through it properly and go through it thoroughly, that's the main thing right there. Go through it thoroughly, and you will have a very good idea as to what they're asking for and what they're looking for. Because then this is more or less for people that are more interested in studying for your CCIE, because there's a level of what's the best way to put it? There's a level of insanity, I guess would be probably the I shouldn't say insanity, because we're doing the same thing over and over and we're getting the expected result. There's a little bit of OCD to it, because you're going through the protocol to such a finite detail. But at the end of the day, if you're in the CCIE lab, and I've been there, done it, got one to prove it, over my right shoulder here, there's my first attempt at the lab. That's the last place you want to be learning something new. And I was tasked with, I was reading through the task of this protocol, and I was reading through the task, and I was just like, wait, what? How you can do that? And I was surprised. I was like, Okay. So fortunately, the CCIE lab is an open book exam. That's why they give you access to the documentation. So, but if you know what you're doing, you shouldn't technically need the documentation. Now, granted, this was on my first attempt. 6 months later, I passed. So, I went in and I looked it up. I was like, oh, well, how about that? So I blew away what I was working on, rebuilt it, and I was able to fix it. But it's that level of detail that you really need to understand. So the idea here is when you're going through and you're testing these technologies out and you're working on your um, working towards your certification goals, that's a big thing that most people tend to overlook. You know, they say, okay, this or that. Now, at the same point in time, you guys know I have a blog and I have been adding content as we go along. And what my goal is I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on ISIS because there's not a lot out there. I'm using the blog as a way to try to put content and information out there for stuff that isn't already out there, and do that, which is going to give you that flexibility of going in and saying, okay, this is what's going on, this is how it works, stuff like that. Now, one of the things that I did here, and for those of you that are following along with me on INE's site, this is the topology I'm using for CCNA service provider. And let me go ahead and just pull this up real quick. Because I've implemented metric style wide, go over to CSR1. Did it like flake out on me? Let's go back to CSR3 and do a show ISIS neighbors. What's actually up right now? So, not sure why that's not working. But we have the idea here is if you know what you're doing, you can prevent bad things from happening. The big thing that I'm going through now is making sure that when I go through the material, I'm going through it as thoroughly as I can. So going through this logically doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, starting at, you know, say authentication. Numerically it does, but typically speaking, it doesn't make it is good just to read through this. And if you were to download the whole book, download the complete book, it's about 3 megs. So for instance, I think I've already downloaded this. Let me just double check here real quick, guys. Let me just do this real quick. iOS XE, command references. Yes, I have. And here it is. So I've already downloaded it. It's only 200 pages. So what I would do is I'd bring this guy over here, and I would sit there and, okay, I'm going to expand this guy out, and I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to hit these, and I'm going to read through them. And then I'll say advertise passive only. And then I'll say, okay, what's the usage for that? Because then I can take this command, then I know what it does. So for me, it's not, I wouldn't say it's rogue memorization, but it's, okay, what does advertise only do? Okay, it says that advertise passive only, to advertise only prefixes that belong to passive interfaces. So the idea here is if you make a passive interface passive in OSPF, EIGRP, and in RIP, what will end up happening is you don't send any messages, any hellos out that interface. In ISIS, it does the same thing. It doesn't send IIHs out, but what it will do is it will advertise that route for you. Where if you do a passive interface, you also have to do a network statement and all the other routing protocols in order for you to get the advertisement to work. So it's one of those things where you gives you that flexibility to go in here and get that optionally running. And so here they have advertise passive only, and so you can go in here and do that, and that's going to allow you to work on getting that option. So passive interface suppresses the sending of routing updates through the specified interface. So you use passive interface, that's going to stop sending hellos, and advertise passive only is only going to advertise passive interfaces, not anything else. So at least that's what I'm reading it. So that just gives you an idea of how this type of stuff will work. So again, it's important to understand that. Now, side note, and this is more of a general question for you guys. I've been getting a lot of requests lately for CCNP switch, and I'm If you're still watching this video, that's why I put it at the end of the video for only the hardcore fans, not to be, not the people that are just going to watch it for 2 minutes and then get tired of listening to me. For those of you that are interested in CCNP Switch, let me know in the comments below, and I want to know, or you can email me, what have you. I'll put my email in the description, as well as my blog link and my emails. The email that I want you to reach me on is in that link as well. What I would like to know is how many of you would like to see a CCNP Switch series. I'm actually going to do another video on that to see who wants one, but I'm going to put it at the end of this one to see how many people will actually get this far. It's to test you guys, see exactly how many of you actually watch the video through completion. If you want to know, if you want a CCNP Switch series produced, let me know. If we get a, I don't have a number in mind, but if we get a pretty good response to it, I will definitely start putting together something for you guys and put it out there. I don't have to worry about putting it on YouTube because INE has basically told me that they are not interested in anything CCNP Switch because they've already got somebody covering that. I think Keith Bogart with INE is doing a phenomenal job doing it, so there's really no need for us to compete in that regard. So that's where I'm at with that. I wanted to keep this video sort of short, not the half hour that I usually get. Let me know in the comments below what you think and stuff like that. You guys have been awesome. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support you've been given. I hope this was informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.